Hello everybody, this is Simon with Let's Play Sonic 2006. Aquatic Base is a tough level to commentate on, mostly because at baseline it is very boring. It is the most combat-focused level we've seen so far, which is definitely not the game's strong suit, but it also features even heavier copy-pasting than Flame Core. The monotony of tedious combat is only interrupted by moments of abject terror when the level remembers that it's supposed to be endgame difficulty and tries to murder you with dumbass design. Suffice to say that even at my current level of skill, making combat largely a non-issue and even armed with knowledge of how to circumvent most of the traps, this is not exactly my favorite level in the game. It's all colored by my first experience with it, where multiple game overs well after the 10-minute mark induced a certain, let's say, frustration in me. By the way, don't miss the first silver level at the start. Despite the hurry in tone, you can take your time however long you want and you need it. I'm using anti-gravity's invincibility here to slide right through here, and now let's try out our new toy. This is the white gem. It gives you this ability to stand in the air, as it says on the tin, and then you can homing attack wherever you want to. It's kind of nice to give you a little more control, and what is really nice is that it gives you a dedicated homing attack button, like Sonic Unleashed would later have. It is not super useful to aim, because Sonic will just still aim where he wants to, but it is better than nothing. It is not the best ability, but you can tell that he does have more animations after he finishes a homing attack. He does have that extra twirl and flourish, and that is what was in the demo, as multiple people have said. By the way, this one doesn't work at all. It's really funny. Yeah, this is the S rank run, by the way. I make a point of playing the level exactly as intended, taking the slowest route through it. That's why I deliberately didn't take the shortcut in the previous room. By the way, this one is the same room as the run before. You might notice some issues here. And I still easily get the S rank. You'll see why at the end. I'll give you the oft-repeated advice right now, the only one you need. Don't die. It's harder than it sounds. Again, skipping the shortcut. You will see it though. Don't worry, there is going to be an extra playthrough afterwards, which is not the S rank. Anyway, continuing on, the level is mostly very linear. Like here, it was definitely linear so far, and there is another room which is entirely you have to be here, kill all the enemies, and there is only one way out, and there is nothing else in this room. It's just a box filled with enemies. The main gimmick of this level is these weird balls, and I'm sure that they're using this to show off the engine. This was definitely something they did in testing. By the way, did you see the silver medal to the side on the pillar? I completely forgot about it. We'll get back to it later. This is also why I have a second run. But what this mostly does is confuse your homing attack, which can be circumvented with the white gem a little bit, maybe, but you really just want to try to take out the enemies as quickly as possible. There is a certain reason for why I'm getting all the rings here. You might see it in the failure reel at the end. You can use the balls to get up here and play around with the physics. You can also just use the bounce attack, so don't worry about that. You have to kill this enemy. Again, most of the enemies in this level are mandatory, because otherwise the door I just passed is closed. Another mercury ball, and this one here is the real tricky part of this level, because it is absolute ass. I really hate controlling this thing, because it gathers a lot of momentum after a bit of running forward. Then you immediately have to stop yourself, because these lasers will pop it immediately and then you die. There's nothing you can do about it. So this entire thing is an instant death trap from start to finish, and the only thing that helps against it is patience. You have to stop between every set of lasers, only passing through when they have completely gone. And this one here is really evil, because the camera is absolutely on your side here. Now it readjusts, but it really should do this earlier, because otherwise you will die to the laser that's just around the corner. And you have to take your time, be real slow. So what I like to do here instead is this. I'm just showing for the last segment, so suffice to say I can do this legit, but you know, it's just not worth it. You can take a breather here and then hop to the end, and then we get the first interesting part of the level, because now we play as Tails. There is this weird pillar here, which is really stupid, because it tempts you to throw something at it and then nothing happens. But actually, when you throw something at it and enemies are in the way with a vast radius around it, all the enemies die. It's fantastic. But the very first one you see doesn't do anything. So you might be tempted to, you know, not use them in the future, which makes the level far worse. So yeah, great, amazing design. Anyway, killing those enemies at the bottom made a spring appear from a cage, but I just demonstrate you don't need the spring, so that's a bit weird as well. Also something which is extremely confusing, this room here. We will come back to it later, and as proof for that, I'll take one single ring of this string of rings. Because I have seen discussions before, it's like, wait, you can't, the level can't just take you in a circle, right? It's not the same room. It's going to be the same room later on. We will see. This is what these enemies do, by the way. Just shooting a lot of lasers from their, what's it called? Options, yes. And I don't know why it doesn't really do anything. It's really weird. The ones that have machine guns are far deadlier, as we're going to see. The laser ones are just really stupid. Anyway, this is one of the few legitimate uses for Tails' sniping, because you can take care of these enemies way before they can do anything against you. Generally, you can snipe a lot here, but most of the enemies aggro on you from far away, and of course they have homing projectiles and you don't, so it's yeah, it's tough. Also something like this can happen, where your rings and the rings that have just been flung out of you, they don't interact well, and there's always a sign of a confident level design when you have two 1-ups at the very start directly in a row. It's just like, oh yeah, people are dying too much here, but there is one easy way to fix that. Let's just put some more 1-ups in here, which don't respawn on death, so doesn't quite work. But yeah, this is, by the way, another kill room, which you know, you just have to tediously kill everything here with Tails, either by sniping from the top, please don't, or by dive bombing everything, carpet bombing it. But there is a far easier way, which I'm going to show off later on, because this is not a well thought out level in the slightest. I mean, apart from the obvious problems here, you might see that I could just fly over this laser grid, and there is a button on the other side, and this is what the game wants you to go through. So I'm showing this off. But everybody in their right mind, if you have any semblance of air control of over Tails, and any idea of what the level might want from you, by the way, this also looks a bit awkward here. Very obvious hiding place though. Then you can just go to the switch at the end, and the enemy behind me won't even have spawned at that point. It's super dumb. I don't know why they did it like this. It's quite obvious that the laser walls are not high enough, but you know, it's this level. I think there is an enemy behind me which I just killed using this. At least sometimes I have seen one die, but I don't quite know. This is also a laser grid that just keeps appearing sometimes, like it wants you to time your flying through it, but it's definitely not high enough. There is no reason for it to exist. It's just really weird. Just like the entire level is janky as hell. For example, here as well, this door also opens only if you kill all the enemies, and you would think that all the enemies are dead from the magnetic thing in the middle, but this one just refuses to die. It never happens. It's consistent, and also the hitboxes on this is completely wrong. You can hit the guy from here. It's safer if you go more to the left. But yeah, I just tend to do it like this, just fly back and then snipe it from here. It's very awkward. It's also really bad because if you try to kill these enemies without the magnetic thing in the middle, which is not something that is super obvious at the start, then sniping them all one at a time while they shoot homing missiles at you, which you barely can see in all of the visual noise that they generate and your ring boxes generate, it's an absolute nightmare, because I know this because I've done this when I first played the level, and this was one of the first real big problem spots, and it's after the terrible Mercury Ball, so yeah. Anyway, back to Sonic, and I don't know why this was important, but hey, look, we are back in the same room, just to prove this again. Why this is confusing is because now that you're Sonic in a Tails room, you can go up there using one of your jumping gems and so on, and there is a bunch of enemies that are now here. And yeah, there is some tense issues here, and it's just really confusing again. So yeah, this is definitely, it is the same room. There's something dumb happening here, but fortunately the combo didn't break. Look at the numbers we get here from killing all these enemies. So the last one, if I had killed them all in a very efficient way, then I would have gotten 7,000 points from that. So I'm missing out on a few points here, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm trying the white gem here to see if this helps in any way. It does not at all. It might give you a semblance of more security, but in the end you just have to go for it. This is always a butt-clenching moment because it's not well done and it doesn't quite work as well as it looks like, as I make it look. But yeah, Then we have this part again, which is again a copy-pasted corridor. The third one of these we've seen so far. It's getting a little harder to commentate on all of this. You have to kill these guys, but now, fortunately, there's an interesting room. It's also a terrible room. Do not hold forward here. This is the one time in the entire game where it does not want you to hold forward. In fact, you have to air correct backwards a little bit, or it will plunge you into the abyss. It's phenomenal. It's terrible. I hate it. This room is garbage. And also the camera is fixed behind you now. We're going to see a bit of an issue with that later on. This is one of the few rooms in the game that features just normal platforming. There's moving platforms. Like in Tales' segment, you had platforms like this, but they didn't move. Makes no sense. But here, yeah, it just shows how little you can trust the game. If you try to do this like normally without my extensive knowledge of playing this game way too much, of how Sonic's physics in the air works, this is a garbage room and you really want to use one of your cheating gems to skip it. By the way, if you are not timing this correctly, then you will get sent into the lasers constantly by the speed boosters. It's great, yeah, you need to know that anti-gravity gives you invincibility, or you want to just avoid the speed boosters circumventing the entire, oh, I'm running down a corridor real fast thing, which, you know, Sonic would be predestined for, but it is really not. Anyway, we have another copy-pasted room. It's phenomenal, but something that is also completely idiotic as far as the structure of this level goes. Now you have the instant kill magnetic things here, making this room far easier than the first one. So this is backwards, if you know what I'm putting down, right? It should increase in difficulty. The enemies should become harder to kill as the level goes on, but they're not. It just makes no real sense to me. There is no progression in this. It's just boring. It just keeps being boring. I'm making a mistake here, by the way, by destroying the wrong boxes. You will see later on what I mean with that. And yeah, anyway, Knuckles. This is the one level where you use all of the amigos of Sonic stories at the same time, because, you know, this is like the climax, the culmination. I have no idea if they even know what the mission is really, because we have not been briefed on any of this. But yeah, something interesting happens here. I killed the first group using the magnetic pillar, a second group spawns in, immediately gets killed. That's really funny. It's also not how it should work. There is this enemy to the right, I don't know what it does. It has some sort of alarm field or something, but I don't know. Maybe it spawns more enemies, I don't know. All of this makes barely any sense. I should have killed the boxes to the left. There is the 8th silver medal in there. Anyway, another enemy that spawns just to be killed by the instant kill thing. Yeah, and something weird happens, but that's just Knuckles. You're going to see more instances of that. It's really bad. This is a segment that will kill you a lot just because Knuckles is awful. And here I could have done the exact same homing attacks, but at this point the recording has gone really well, and this is the last really big bad obstacle in the level, so I opted to just skip it. Now this room is finally a unique room. We haven't seen this one before. It's still just a box, but at least it has a little something going for it with these hidden niches here where you can find a lot of goodies, including a silver medal on the other side, so that's kind of nice. But it is still a kill room, you know. In this case, at the very least, you have an escalating waves of enemies. They do become a little bit harder, from the basic ones to the missile throwing ones here that have a larger health bar, obviously. And then after I kill these, you will see that there is even more escalation as far as the enemies go. You don't need the enemies to go up here, you can just bounce. Don't forget that the bounce bracer is pretty good at this. And there are a few goodies to be had here, so if you ever have trouble with the combat, you can just keep refilling here. Now we have the big robots, which would be hard if we didn't have the bounce bracelet. I could also use anti-gravity, of course, but not against the last one, because I would only trip it up. Then we have another corridor, which is exactly the same as the other corridors. At this point I realize I'm missing medals, but yeah, it's not there. And we have some more basic enemies. And again, there is no difficulty progression in this. They have enough enemies that have an increase in difficulty, more or less. And but there is just basic enemies here. Yes, there is more. But with a lot of Sonic's attacks, especially the tornado, it doesn't matter how many enemies there are. And also, nothing is forcing you to kill these enemies. We're going to see that in the fast run, which I will append at the end, where I get the last few medals. You can just speed through here, and this is the one part that's actually kind of fun, because you can't just keep going, invalidating the one part where they're like, oh, there's a lot of robots here. Isn't it awesome? You have to fight through Eggman's armies. It's just not fun. just not that fun. And again, I am good at the combat, so I can make this pass by as quickly as possible. The first time you're here, you're just homing, attacking, homing, attacking, homing, attacking all the time, and your X button is getting worn out because it's just so dull and tedious. By the way, you might have noticed I have 58,000 points just from killing all of these enemies, and this is why it is really easy to get an S rank here if you don't die. Mystery solved. I hope you weren't like hoping for something revelatory. Also, that last silver medal, extremely hard to miss. You might want to listen for the sound cue, though they are a bit inconsistent in playing it. Now, final obstacle. Wait for it. Yeah, sometimes the laser grid goes on here and then kills you, and it's really funny. It's not funny. Terrible idea. It doesn't really kill you, it just gets you hit. But I also have a lot of rings now, so that all of that is unnecessary. The time bonus is non-existent here, even though I just played the level as normal, and you'll see that the time bonus here can never be too great. But I got some bonus rings because I just didn't get hit at the end. That's nice, but it's all completely pointless. Just kill all of those enemies. You can focus on the big ones, that's enough. All of the combo bonuses, all of that, that's good enough for most of the level. And yeah, I'm missing 2 silver medals, will be rectified. I will see you after these cutscenes. Stay tuned.
Thrust increasing. Engine output at maximum. Course plotted. Gate open. Lifting off.
Why is this happening? No! Playtime's over.
Sonic!
This ship is about to crash. Too bad, Eggman. I'm not finished yet.
Just to avoid confusion for the next video, the end of that cutscene segues directly into Sonic's final boss, but of course you get the save, so that's fine. So, what am I doing here? I'm going to show you a bit of a speedrun through this level. I'm actually going to use speedrun tricks, and I'm getting better at them as I progress. And I don't want to toot my own horn. I'm not a speedrunner, and I will never be. I just don't really care for this kind of gameplay. You can do this, and a lot of speedrunners say like, hey, everybody can do this, and yes, you can do this if you spend like 20 minutes practicing the trick. That's fine. You do not have to practice anything I'm going to show you in this part of the video. If you ever pick up this game, just buy the gems, you need those for that, and then you can instantly do it. This first part, however, features the only interesting shortcuts in the entire level, and this is also something why I'm so down on it. Because this is fun, you know, just skipping stuff with rainbow rings. I love this. This is great gameplay. I'm super into it. I'm absolutely unironically. My favorite part of this game probably is just finding ways to get to these rainbow rings and skipping a lot of the content, because it's not necessary for the game to experience everything it has to offer. It has never been in any game. It's perfectly fine if a designer has the confidence to say, yeah, so I made a lot of level and I also made a way to skip it, and that's fine because I'm confident that this is the fun part. The skipping is the fun part, and if people really like the game, then they will want to experience all of the paths and sometimes take a slower one, which is what I'm doing. Yeah? But the rest of this miserable experience, I gotta be honest here, is so linear, and there is no real deviation from what it really wants you to do, that this is basically on rails from now on. There is no more fun like I just had. By the way, if you go to the left corner of this room, you can skip the entire tail segment, staying Sonic, by glitching into the wall using the Sky Gem, which I'm not doing because there is stuff I want to show off in the Tails section, as Tails of course, but you could do this conceivably. I haven't tried it myself, but I've seen it and it looks really easy. maybe it needs a little bit more practice to avoid death planes. It's something similar to how glitching through the ceiling at the end of Flame Core with Knuckles works. This is how the spring works. It just sends you up here. It doesn't really work. You have to hold forward a little bit, but it's good enough. Anyway, there is something else here, and there is another switch up here, which is fun because Sonic says, oh, we need a switch to open the door. Yeah, there is a bunch of switches that opens a bunch of doors, but it's completely unclear which door he means, and this is why this part of the level is so confusing and why I put the marker down in the normal part, because it's not entirely clear that you are actually going back to the same room, and it's not entirely clear which door you actually have to take. This is also because other characters go through different doors. It's going to be fun to see that just like Shadow comes out from another door and goes into another one, and Silver goes through the third door down there, and it's just massively confusing. Anyway, what you do here is just not engage with the enemies, just fly over everything. It's phenomenal. You can just ignore all of these laser walls, similar to the ones that you can ignore in Sonic's parts, because you can just be invincible with anti-gravity. But here as well, just fly over it. There's nothing stopping you. It's like they don't know what Tails can do. And I don't know if this is like, this is the intended shortcut, but it's so brain dead easy to do this that I don't quite know where's the challenge. Challenge is doing it normally. That's just weird, that's backwards. And that's the entire level here basically. You go here fast enough and try to snipe this guy immediately. Might work for you, because then you don't get shot while you try to stay here and just snipe, because it's really bad. So this is basically the best way to do this, maybe. But it's still not a very good way. It's just a damn boring, bad section, to be quite honest here. This one here is also almost impossible to not get hit on. You can try to carpet bomb the kill switch, but you know. Anyway, the level put me backwards here. I don't know why, but you know, at this point I'm not questioning these tiny things. You can use the spin dash to activate these, and I'm trying this here because if it works, it looks really cool, because you can spin dash through all of them at once, but you know, it didn't work, so well. Well. And I keep getting confused in this room, but here is the 7,000 points bonus in total. So there is a combo system in this game, similar to the combo system in Heroes, which is also quite understated. And yes, this is not the correct door. Sorry, I'm getting confused again, because this room is very samey. But it barely comes into play only when you do stuff like this, where you take out big groups at once using these Destructo things. Bouncing before you get yanked makes it a little bit more consistent, so you don't bounce against any of the mercury balls. It's not super necessary. If you have the timing down, I don't always, yeah, but generally I do have, you can also just kick through these. It's a bit faster. So you don't have to do anti-gravity. Anti-gravity is much more consistent though. So to avoid deaths here, just don't take the loop. The dash pads will still send you up to possibly an early death, but if you just aim really high here with the sky jam, then you can just skip to the end of the room. Because this level is so linear, it is the perfect playground to use the sky jam to just skip everything. I'm trying it here as well. This is actually the first time I tried this. It doesn't work here, but it's going to work twice more later on. It just did not work here because the enemies kept interrupting me, so I did it the normal way. But stay tuned, there is going to be more speedrun fun. This is really cool actually. I really like this part. If you hit all of the pads and then go through all of the walls here with your kick, and this is once the kick is actually useful, you can speed through these tunnels. And it's like, this is almost like a normal Sonic game where you're just going extremely fast and just damn the rules. You just keep blasting by the enemies, and you can just ignore the combat because it's not fun to be forced into combat. You're not in these corridors, you're not forced into combat, so you can just blast through them, and that's good. I like it. The game should be more like this. So Aquatic base does improve. By the way, this is where the detection thing of the enemy that's flying there comes in, but doesn't do anything. Aquatic base does improve if you know how these things work, but you can just go through the laser walls using the invincibility bestowed upon you by your moves, and it's sad that it's extremely hard to tell if this is intentional or not. I just don't know, because the game is overall so inept and stitched together that it might be the idea of a really clever level designer to use these destructible glass walls where they just, people will at some point figure out that they can blast through it, and it's awesome, but you don't know. This door doesn't open unless you take the pulley, which is really weird, but I don't want to go down So I'm trying the glitch again. Wouldn't you know it? It just works. You can glitch through most of the doors here just by throwing the sky gem in a corner. It will yank Sonic fast enough that he just goes through the door, because we know that doors are an illusion. Doesn't work here, but second try, bam, I'm through. Awesome, phenomenal, love to do it. Skipped a huge amount of combat back there. Really great. And now this is speed. Look at this. This is great. This is awesome. Now, awesome. Yes, yes, yes. Don't kill any of these enemies. Don't do it. Just, little bit off with my timing. And then I just get stuck against him for a second. This happens more often than you would think, by the way. That you get stuck against an openable surface or a destroyable door or whatever. And just can't pass through it for a bit. It's just a really, really weird. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. And, this is the laser wall. As that doesn't kill you, it just hits you. If it did not, actually, fun thing. I skipped a lot. Yeah, a lot. But the time bonus is still extremely low. You can't win an S rank with time bonus here. You can get some rings as a buffer. 10 more rings and I would have made it. Or one more big enemy killed in the final room. And I would have had an S rank. But as I said, just do it normally, don't die. I hope you liked this extra video, just showing off a few tricks that you can do. And if you did, like me back, and thank you very much for your attention. I'm actually going to commentate this part here because there is a lot to say about it. So first of all, this first shortcut here barely works. It's really tough to get working because doing the correct homing attacks on the enemy, it's not fun. And this is how deadly the machine gun can actually be. I rarely show it off because I'm just relatively good at the combat and the alpha strike all of the enemies so that they don't do too much to me. But again, machine gun and I try to jump into those rings back there, just enemy kills me. Whoop. I can't explain this. In one of my recordings, these pillars turned red. I don't know if this is an emulation glitch or if this is like a second stage you can activate. I don't know what it would do because it kills all the enemies anyway, but whatever. This is what happens usually in this room. You just, yeah, it just goes a little too far. And the platform only starts moving when you are on it, so that's nice. Like they thought about this so that the timing will always be correct, but then they misadjusted the physics. Beautiful. Press the homing attack button too late here. While you're in the homing attack, you're invincible. But, yeah, well, it is tough. Yeah, I thought the enemy hadn't seen me. This is how you do it. You just homing attack earlier, but it's, yeah. This is my first recording where I realized I missed the medal. I'm desperately trying to adjust the camera, but all I do is like have some weird hair physics. It's not hair, it's quills, but you know, on Sonic. So I have to use this to go back because I cannot see where I'm going, obviously. I just can't change the camera back. It's really weird. It's just fixed in place here. It's like they knew that the platforming is ass, so they force you to always see what they want to see, but yeah. Well, anyway, I call this next segment the Haha Amigos segment. So Tails always drops like a stone after he's done flying, and this is just like sometimes he just doesn't make it, yeah, and it's always like, oh yeah, you lose a lot of minutes for this, like 7 minutes the last time I died. It's brilliant. I don't know what happened here, yeah, I got shot out of the air, yes, but why does he drill down? I don't know. Now I'm gonna drill down to the right side of this, and what the hell just happened? I bounced off that thing and yeah. Beautiful. Pour one out for our poor mate Knuckles. He got done dirty by this game.